What's up guys, Jakob Owens here for the Buff Nerds, and today we're going to talk about how to charge a client. This is probably one of the most requested topics, questions that I get, whether it's on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, emails, is like, how do you charge a client? What's your ways of going about talking a client through budget, how much you charge, what are your rates, how do you tell people what your rates are? And so today I want to talk about how to charge a client. The truth is, being a freelance creator can be tough. It's scary. Everyone goes through their own journey of discovering the methods of how to price his or her work. And the hardest thing to grasp is there's not just a one-size-fits-all price model. Every single person has unique value, skills to bring to the table that determine your value and worth depending on the project that you're working on. Every job contains different circumstances, different opportunities, different modes and styles of work and tasks to be done. So there is really no set price base model of how you charge a client. There's a lot of variables, and I want to get into that. 3 of the main things to understand are understanding your value, analyzing the opportunity, and quoting the client. We'll get into those 3 things, but the first big thing I want to talk about is knowing when to say no or yes to an opportunity. Saying yes until you can say no. For me, when I started out, I was taking every job possible, whether I wanted to do it or not, because how you start to build a reputation, a name, a brand, connections for yourself is doing jobs and networking with people. And then ultimately you get to a point to where you can just tell people no or take the jobs you want to take. If you're wanting to become a full-time freelancer, I highly suggest you take every single opportunity that comes your way. Not only will this give you a lot of experience, but you will also learn a lot about the demands of different clients and people along the way. You'll make critical mistakes that help you learn and grow into how you deal with clients and how you charge clients moving forward. All right, so the biggest thing for me when talking to a client, the first thing I say is, what is your overall budget? This to me is the biggest and number one most important tip, because a lot of times you may have people hit you up and say, hey, what's your rate for a video, or what's your rate? And by asking what the budget is, you may be able to get paid a lot more than if you would have just said what your kind of day rate or average rate is. You don't know what that client's budget is. It could be $10,000 for the whole project, and you may have quoted them at, oh, I can do it for 2, and you're missing out on a huge gap there. Ben talks about this a lot in his client charging book guide that he just put out. I heavily endorse it. I read through it. A lot of what I'm talking about today is in that book, and a lot of tips, tricks, and stuff is in that book, which is a downloadable PDF to your desktop. Ben shoots for Schoolboy Q, Beyonce, Jay-Z. He's done a lot of big stuff in the industry, continues to do a lot of big stuff, and he recently wrote a guide about this, much like I write guides for a lot of my topics, and I'm very impressed with it, and it's something to definitely look into. I'll link it in the description below as well, so make sure to go check that out. And Ben even talks about what I just talked about in that guide. He talks about how this one company hit him up, and they asked him, how much he would charge to film and edit this event that they needed filmed. And he, instead of just saying like, hey, yeah, that's gonna cost $1,500, he asked them what their budget was. They ended up telling him that the budget, if I remember correctly, is somewhere around $8,000 to $10,000. So he ended up getting it like an extra shooter, shooting it, editing it, doing everything, and being able to take home a lot more on that project because he asked what their overall budget was, rather than just being like, yeah, I'm gonna charge you this to do that. So I think one of the biggest things you can do when talking with clients or trying to figure out what they want to do is asking what their budget is and the scale and size of the project. Because I'm not going to charge $1,500 for a video that's going to take 1 day, and also charge $1,500 for a video that's going to take 5 days to film. So you just have to figure out what the client's budget is, what they're trying to do scale-wise for the project, and adjust accordingly. Whether that's adjusting your day rate for shooting, directing, or if that's figuring out what the total budget is and how you can bring their vision to life and still take something away out of that budget. Typically for me, for music videos and a lot of other filmmakers in the industry, how it works is a label might have $20,000 for a music video. Well, out of that $20,000, I have to make the music video and also get my rate. It's not like the label hits me, hey, how much do you charge for a music video? How it works is they have a budget of $20,000, and then out of that $20,000, I make their video, and I could pull away $1,000, I could pull away $5,000, but that leaves $15,000 to do the rest of their video and get everything needed. So it's all about budgets, and that's how it actually kind of works in the industry, is finding out what the budget of the project is, and then usually as a director, you would take 10% of that budget as your fee. But again, if you can produce the video for cheaper and pull more money for your rate, great. But again, that's just typically how it works in the industry, is you work off the overall budget of the project. Now, there are things to be said for day rates, like I'll get hired to just DP, I'll get hired just to edit, I'll get hired just to color, and those I have single like day rates for. So if you wanna hire me as a DP with my camera package, this is my rate for one day. If you wanna hire me to edit a video, this is my edit rate for a single music video or a day's worth of editing. So I do have day rates for single, like one-off, hired productions where I'm being hired to do a single task, whether it's to come out to shoot for one day, whether it's to color a music video, or whether it's to, edit a video. And so you can have a price guide or just have a set in your head price model of your day rates for certain tasks that you may do. A lot of times you can also quote a client on what the project will cost. So recently, we got the overall scope for this new project we're working on, what they wanted to accomplish, everything they wanted done, and we sent them a quote of what it would take to get done. Then from there, it was fine tuning it. They're like, oh, that's a little above our budget. So we reduced some things, and now boom, the overall budget to produce this project from front to back completion is going to cost this much money. Then out of that, I try and pull my rate and make the video happen via the overall budget. So a lot of times it can work on quotes too. You can quote a client, it's gonna cost this much, and here's the breakdown of why it'll cost this much. You wanna break it down so they understand the value that they are getting and what you're doing. So breaking down line items of, like rentals for location, talent, hair and makeup, my fee, lighting rentals, breaking it down and presenting that quote, much like if you were to have a contractor come quote what it's gonna take to fix up your house, that is something you can do as well. And another thing I wanna talk about is there's more to gain from opportunities than just money. Ask yourself going into a job, is there more opportunity here? Could it lead to more jobs down the road? Could this lead to another job via someone I meet on set, or the work that I'm doing that's right in line with the type of work I want to be doing in the future? I'm gonna take less money on this job just so I can get that type of work under my belt. You never know who you're gonna meet. It's gonna bring you on to future projects. There's been plenty of projects where I've gone out well below maybe what my day rate is or what my overall production fee would be, but I end up meeting or connecting with someone who brings me onto some bigger productions down the road. So always look at the opportunity more than just money. A lot of people get caught up too much about the money. And early on, that's how I got into the industry, was shooting free music videos for artists like Futuristic, KID, Kyle, all these artists early on, and that's what allowed me to get my foot in the door, is because I wasn't trying to charge them for videos. And I was able to build my reel and work and a name and a reputation for myself, and then other people started hiring me. So lastly, carefully review everything. You can always negotiate any sort of rate. They may be like, oh, that's a little over my budget. You can negotiate, come down, but you can never go back up. So start high, you can come down low. You can always negotiate with a client, whether it's a quote, a day rate, whatever it is. Feel free to negotiate as well. So I just want to say big shout out to Ben Haggerty. Again, his guide goes over a lot of this, but also in more detail, how to charge a client guide. Big ups to what they're doing at the Black with No Cream podcast. I was just on it recently and had a great time talking to him. One of my favorite conversations podcasts I've ever done. Go check out the guide. I'll put a link, like I said, in the description below of the video. Go check it out. He does some really amazing work, and I just want to say shout out to them, what they're doing for the film creative and film community as a whole. Make sure to subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Tons of behind the scenes content, informative content, cinema breakdowns, lots of tips, tricks, camera hacks, all that good stuff. So make sure you go check all that out and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Without further ado, I'm Jakob Owens for the Buff Nerds, and I'm out.